Thank you all for being here. Mr. Spiegel, I see you hiding down there. What does yada, yada, yada mean?
I'm not familiar with the term, Senator.
Very uncool. Can we agree that what you do, not what you say, what you do is what you believe and everything else is just cottage cheese?
Yes, Senator.
You agree with that? Speak up. Don't be shy. I've listened to you today. I've heard a lot of yada, yada, yadaing. And I've heard you talk about the reforms you've made, and I appreciate them. And I've heard you talk about the reforms you're going to make. But I don't think you're going to solve the problem. I think Congress is going to have to help you. I think the reforms you're talking about to some extent are going to be like putting paint on rotten wood. And I'm not sure you're going to support this legislation. I'm not.
When a U.S. senator told tech CEO that they were no longer just companies, but countries, it wasn't just rhetorical flair. It was a powerful indictment of how far these tech giants have risen in terms of power and influence. In today's digital age, companies like Meta, Google, Amazon, and Snapchat have transcended traditional business models. They don't just sell products or services, they shape conversations, elections, cultural norms, and even the mental health of their users. This transformation has placed them in a category beyond ordinary corporations, making them almost untouchable in the eyes of regulators and lawmakers. Until now, the senator's remark reflected a growing concern within the U.S. government that these platforms wield power on a global scale without facing any of the accountability mechanisms applied to actual nation states. While a sovereign nation is subject to international law, treaties, and domestic checks and balances, tech companies operate under loose guidelines, often self-regulated and backed by armies of lobbyists that shield them from real oversight. They influence billions of lives through invisible lines of code and data pipelines, yet they answer only to shareholders, not to the people whose lives are affected by their decisions. The statement was also meant to expose how these companies have used their massive influence to resist regulation at every turn. Whether the issue is consumer privacy, misinformation, or child exploitation, every attempt by lawmakers to impose reasonable regulation has been met with fierce opposition from tech lobbyists and executives. Bills that aim to restrict data harvesting, force algorithm transparency, or protect minors online often die in committee, watered down or blocked altogether. The senator accused the CEOs, both present and absent from the hearing, of deliberately obstructing progress. This isn't just bureaucratic foot dragging, it's an organized defense of a business model that thrives on unregulated access to user data. Adding to the critique, the senator argued that reforms proposed by tech leaders, like Zuckerberg and Spiegel, amounted to little more than cosmetic changes. He compared them to putting paint on rotten wood, implying that the core structure of these platforms is deeply flawed and possibly beyond internal repair. Without external intervention, he suggested, the systemic issues these platforms create and amplify will continue to spread unchecked. By likening these tech empires to independent nations, the senator emphasized the urgency of the situation. These companies control the public square, dominate advertising markets, and maintain monopolistic control over the flow of information. Their decisions affect economies, education systems, and even the way people view themselves and each other. Yet, despite this immense influence, they operate with little to no transparency. The conclusion was chilling but clear. If Congress doesn't step in soon, these digital nations will continue to grow in influence, reshaping society according to their private algorithms and profit motives. The senator's plea was not just a call for legislation. It was a warning that the balance of power in modern society has already shifted, and reclaiming it will take more than polite conversations or half-hearted reforms. One of the most alarming concerns raised during the Senate hearing was the harmful impact of Instagram and similar social media platforms on teenagers, especially young girls. This issue has been bubbling beneath the surface for years, but it took a direct confrontation in the Senate to bring it fully into the light. The senator, addressing Mark Zuckerberg, didn't mince words. He challenged the Meta CEO to admit what many experts, parents, and internal researchers have already suspected, that Instagram is contributing to the mental health crisis among youth. Despite Zuckerberg's attempts to downplay the harm, the senator made a compelling case. He pointed to research, some of it conducted internally by Meta itself, that shows a disturbing correlation between Instagram use and rising rates of anxiety, depression, body image issues, and suicidal ideation among teenagers. In particular, adolescent girls are especially vulnerable. Instagram, with its endless stream of idealized beauty standards, filtered lifestyles, and validation through likes and comments, creates an environment where young users constantly compare themselves to others. This toxic loop of comparison and inadequacy often erodes self-esteem and can lead to lasting emotional damage. Zuckerberg tried to argue that the data was being misrepresented. He claimed that most teens surveyed actually felt Instagram had a positive impact, or at least no negative effect. However, the senator wasn't interested in blanket statistics. He focused on the real-life consequences. Countless young people suffering in silence, influenced by a platform designed not with their well-being in mind, but with engagement and profit as the top priorities. The senator emphasized that acknowledging even one category of psychological harm should be enough to force change. If you truly believe Instagram isn't hurting millions of our young people, he said directly, then you shouldn't be running it. That powerful statement cut to the heart of the matter. For all the talk of innovation and digital connection, the fundamental question remains, at what cost? Moreover, it's not just about the content itself, it's about the algorithms that deliver it. These systems, built to maximize time spent on the platform, learn what users respond to emotionally. For teens, that often means showing content related to appearance, social status, and popularity, all highly sensitive topics during a critical stage of development. As a result, the algorithm can magnify insecurities instead of alleviating them. This isn't just an unintended side effect, it's a predictable outcome of a system optimized for engagement rather than mental health. In this light, the senator's demand for regulation becomes not only justified but essential. Parents across the country are struggling to help their children navigate these platforms, often without understanding how they work or the depth of their influence. Tech companies, meanwhile, continue to profit while claiming neutrality. But neutrality is no longer an excuse. The platforms know the harm, and they've known it for a long time. The bottom line is that platforms like Instagram may offer connection, but they also offer exposure to unrealistic standards, to toxic validation loops, and to mental health risks that can haunt users well into adulthood. The stakes are too high to ignore.
Mr. Zuckerberg, let me ask you a couple of questions. I might wax a little philosophical here. I have to hand it to you. You have convinced over 2 billion people to give up all of their personal information, every bit of it, in exchange for getting to see what their high school friends had for dinner Saturday night. That's pretty much your business model, isn't it?
It's not how I would characterize it. And we give people the ability to connect with the people they care about and to engage with the topics that they care about.
And you take this information, this abundance of personal information, and then you develop algorithms to punch people's hot buttons, and steer to them information that punches their hot buttons again and again and again to keep them coming back and to keep them staying longer. And as a result, your users see only one side of an issue. And so to some extent, your platform has become a killing field for the truth, hasn't it?
I mean, Senator, I disagree with that characterization. We build ranking and recommendations because people have a lot of friends and a lot of interests, and they want to make sure that they see the content that's relevant to them. We're trying to make a product that's useful to people and make our services as helpful as possible for people to connect with the people they care about and the interests they care about.
But you
And
don't
that's what we
show
do.
them both sides. You don't give.
One of the most critical points raised during the Senate hearing was the question of whether users truly understand what personal data they're giving up when they use platforms like Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat. The senator challenged Mark Zuckerberg directly on this issue, raising doubts about whether people actually comprehend how their data is collected, processed, monetized, and used to shape their digital experiences. While Zuckerberg insisted that people understand the basic terms, the senator wasn't convinced, and neither are many privacy advocates. The issue lies in how these platforms communicate with their users. Most user agreements are long, full of legal jargon, and nearly impossible for the average person to understand. The senator sarcastically referred to Facebook's user agreement as something that still sucks, implying that the language is deliberately obscure to prevent users from fully grasping what they are agreeing to. He even joked about whether one could hide a dead body in the middle of the legal terms, and no one would notice. While it was a darkly humorous metaphor, it underscored a real problem: lack of transparency. For years, social media companies have buried critical information about data collection practices in dense privacy policies that few people read. Most users in practice simply click accept without any real understanding of what's being shared. This data often includes location information, browsing habits, contacts, voice recordings, and more. Once collected, this information is packaged, analyzed, and often sold to third-party advertisers or used to create hyper-targeted content that manipulates user behavior. Zuckerberg's response: that people get the basic deal, because they know that sharing a post means others can see it, misses the bigger picture. Yes, users may understand the visible parts of social media, like likes, comments, and stories. But the invisible part, the algorithms, data tracking, cross-platform surveillance, and behavioral profiling, is far more complex and rarely understood by the average person. This lack of informed consent undermines the very foundation of digital trust. Moreover, many people are unaware that these platforms often continue tracking their data even when they're not actively using the app. Some companies even collect data from users who don't have accounts through tracking pixels and embedded tools on third-party websites. This practice, sometimes called shadow profiling, creates a digital dossier on people who never agreed to participate in the platform at all. The senator's frustration revealed a growing sentiment among lawmakers that companies have done the bare minimum to inform users about their rights and data usage. In an era where data is the most valuable currency, users deserve to know exactly what they're trading for free access to these services. They deserve simplified, honest, and upfront disclosures, not vague checkboxes and 50-page policies. If users truly understood what they were giving away, many might think twice before uploading that photo or checking that location. Until then, the illusion of consent will continue to protect these platforms from accountability, while ordinary people pay the price in privacy. Perhaps one of the most unsettling revelations during the Senate hearing was the exposure of Facebook's tracking practices, particularly the fact that the platform collects data on people even when they are not actively using the service, or in some cases, even when they don't have an account at all. This level of surveillance prompted the senator to deliver one of the most memorable lines of the hearing: "You're in the foothills of creepy." It wasn't just a colorful phrase. It was a wake-up call about the growing sense of unease surrounding digital privacy in the modern era. The senator accused Facebook, and by extension other tech platforms, of building a sprawling surveillance apparatus that extends far beyond the boundaries of the platform itself. Most users are vaguely aware that using Facebook involves giving up some personal data. What they don't know is how deep that data mining goes. Facebook can track its users across the internet through embedded tools like buttons, login integrations, and tracking pixels. These tools appear on millions of websites and allow Facebook to monitor where users go, what they read, what they click on, even if they're logged out. Even more concerning is the revelation that Facebook also tracks non-users. Through cookies and embedded code on partner websites, the company can collect behavioral data on people who have never created a Facebook account. This means that simply browsing the web is enough to get swept into Facebook's data ecosystem, with no formal consent, no user agreement, and no ability to opt out. It's a form of passive surveillance that goes unnoticed by most people, but it builds vast and detailed profiles used for advertising and content targeting. Zuckerberg attempted to justify this practice by claiming it's necessary for things like security, personalization, and delivering better service. But critics argue that the real motivation is profit. More data means more accurate targeting, which means more valuable ads and ultimately more revenue. This business model, reliant on constant surveillance, is what the senator found deeply troubling. The phrase foothills of creepy captured the essence of the ethical dilemma, the idea that we're already on a dangerous path and the mountain ahead, where even more invasive technologies are deployed without consent, is not far off. The implications go beyond targeted ads. This type of tracking affects political discourse, manipulates user behavior, and opens the door to potential abuses by malicious actors or even foreign governments. What's particularly alarming is how little control users have over this. Privacy settings are often buried, difficult to understand, or ineffective. Even tech-heavy users struggle to fully escape the reach of Facebook's tracking. And for non-users, there's virtually no recourse at all. The senator's remarks were more than a policy critique. They were a moral indictment of a system that treats human beings as products, collecting their information without transparency or respect. It's a reminder that while technology can connect us, it can also monitor us, shaping our digital lives in ways we never signed up for. The call for reform isn't just about fixing policy. It's about restoring dignity to the digital world.